She stood at the airport gate holding a single suitcase packed with clothes and hope. Her name was Amina, a young immigrant woman who had spent her life dreaming about the American dream. Since childhood, her walls were covered with pictures of tall city skylines, crowded streets, and opportunities that seemed infinite. She believed America was a place where hard work could change destiny, and she wanted that chance. Back home, things were difficult. Her family lived through years of struggle. Her parents worked long hours and still could not afford the future they wanted for their children. Amina had watched people leave her country and return years later with new confidence and purpose. She wanted that. She wanted a future where her voice mattered, where her effort paid off, and where she could build something bigger than the limits she had grown up with. When she finally landed in the United States, everything felt bigger, louder, and faster. The language rolled past her ears like waves that she could not fully catch. Bright signs flashed names of places she had never seen. People rushed through hallways holding coffees and phones. The energy was overwhelming, but thrilling. Her heart pounded as she walked outside into the cold air of the city. One deep breath, and she whispered to herself that she would make this work, no matter how long it took. Her first weeks were filled with confusion. She stayed in a small shared apartment with 3 other immigrants from different countries. Nobody spoke the same language, but everyone shared the same dream: survival. They worked random jobs and tried to learn how trains, buses, and stores worked. Amina felt lost often, yet every night she studied English by watching old movies, pausing and repeating words again and again. Her notebook was filled with new phrases and mistakes, but she kept going because every word learned felt like a victory. Soon, she found a job cleaning tables in a small restaurant. It was not glamorous, but it was honest work, and it paid just enough to cover rent and cheap groceries. She woke up before sunrise, walked through cold streets, and returned home long after dark. Her feet ached, her back hurt, and some customers treated her like she was invisible. But she did not complain. Instead, she watched. She listened. She absorbed everything around her because she knew that learning was the first step toward building a new life. Sometimes, during slow hours, she talked to another worker named Alina, who was also an immigrant. Alina had been in the country longer, and she told Amina about community classes, food banks, and job fairs that could help. Elena said that America was not easy, but it rewarded those who refused to give up. Amina held on to those words like they were gold. At night, when the city lights glowed outside her window, Amina thought about home. She missed her parents, her siblings, the familiar smells of food, and the sunsets she used to watch from her rooftop. She missed belonging. But every time she imagined giving up, she remembered why she left. She wanted more. She wanted freedom. She wanted to prove that dreams could become real even for people like her. And so her journey began with hardship, misunderstanding, and uncertainty, but deep inside her burned a quiet determination that nothing could extinguish. She did not know it yet, but the long path toward her American dream had officially started. The winter months were harsh and unforgiving, streets covered in ice, winds that cut through layers of clothing, and a loneliness that settled deep inside. Yet Amina pushed forward because stopping meant failing, and failing was not an option. She continued working at the small restaurant, wiping tables, washing dishes, and helping wherever needed. The owner did not say much, but he noticed she learned quickly and worked without complaining. Over time, he trusted her with more tasks, and that tiny increase in responsibility felt like a milestone. Outside of work, she began attending night classes at a community center. The classroom was filled with people from all over the world. Each came with a different accent, a different story, and a desire for the same thing: a better life. The teacher spoke slowly, pointing to pictures, writing words on a board, and encouraging everyone to speak without fear. Amina struggled to form full sentences, but each attempt helped her gain confidence. She practiced speaking with classmates, repeating phrases until they finally sounded natural in her mouth. Money was always tight. She skipped new clothes, avoided unnecessary expenses, and saved every small amount she could. She cooked cheap meals of rice and vegetables and often went to bed hungry rather than spend more than her budget allowed. These sacrifices were heavy, but necessary, because she was building a foundation, and foundations were not meant to be comfortable, they were meant to be strong. Time passed, and she gradually understood more English at work. Customers sometimes asked her simple questions, and she learned how to answer with short, polite responses. Every successful interaction felt like a small victory. One day, a woman thanked her warmly for her help, and that simple kindness made her eyes sting with emotion because it reminded her that she was not invisible, that she mattered. During this period, she also faced discrimination. Some people spoke slowly and loudly to her as if she were incapable. Others made rude comments about immigrants taking jobs or not belonging. She never argued because she felt her English was not strong enough and her position too fragile. Instead, she swallowed the hurt and used it as fuel. She promised herself she would grow so capable that nobody could ignore her again. One evening after class, she visited a job fair where local organizations discussed training opportunities. She collected brochures and listened quietly to speakers talk about nursing, accounting, business administration, and technology. The word technology caught her attention. She had always been curious about computers and phones, but never had the chance to explore deeper. A volunteer explained that there were programs that help immigrants learn digital skills and sometimes even offered scholarships. That night, Hope found a new doorway in her mind. She began researching free courses at public libraries and community centers. Eventually, she enrolled in a basic computer class. It was intimidating at first because she had never typed more than a few words at a time, but the instructor was patient and she worked hard. Every assignment she completed made her feel more capable. She learned typing, document formatting, email etiquette, and online communication. She practiced after work at the library until they switched off the lights and asked her to leave. Her roommates noticed how rarely she slept. They offered her tea and snacks and sometimes sat beside her in silence while she studied. Even though they came from different countries, they understood each other deeply because they were all fighting their own battles in a foreign land. That silent companionship became a source of comfort and helped her endure evenings when doubt tried to crush her spirit. Months later, spring arrived. Flowers bloomed, and the city seemed less intimidating. She no longer got lost on buses and trains. She could order food without fear, and she even managed to joke with coworkers using simple words. There was still a long journey ahead, but she was no longer in the dark. She was learning how the system worked, how people behaved, and how to navigate a world that once felt impossible. One afternoon, Elena pulled her aside and said there was an opening for a waitress position at another restaurant. Elena encouraged her to apply, saying it paid better and required some English skills. Amina hesitated because she feared she was not ready. Elena smiled and said, "Nobody ever feels ready, but progress requires risk." Those words stayed in her mind, and that night she filled out the application carefully, writing her experience and her phone number before submitting it online. For the next several days, she waited with nervous anticipation, jumping every time her phone buzzed. Finally, she received a message inviting her for an interview. Her heart raced. She had never been interviewed before. She spent hours practicing answers in front of a mirror, repeating phrases until they felt natural in her mouth. She borrowed a clean blouse from her roommate, tied her hair neatly, and traveled across the city to the restaurant location. When she stepped into the building, the manager greeted her and guided her to a table where he asked questions about her experience, availability, and strengths. She stumbled over words, but she pushed through, smiling when unsure, listening carefully, and showing her dedication through her tone and posture. When it was over, he thanked her and said they would contact her soon. As she walked out into the sunlight, her body trembled with adrenaline. Irregardless of the result, she had taken a bold step forward, a step that showed she was no longer just surviving. She was trying to climb, and trying mattered because it proved that the American dream was not just about reaching the top, but about daring to start the climb. Days passed slowly after the interview. Every morning she checked her phone before work and every night before bed. Her hope flickered between bright and dim because she wanted that job badly. Not just for better pay, but for what it represented: growth, confidence, progress. She kept imagining the phone ringing, hearing someone say she had been hired, and feeling her entire life shift in that moment. She tried to stay calm, but the waiting felt like standing on the edge of something important. One evening, as she walked home from the restaurant, her phone vibrated. She looked at the screen and saw the name of the manager from the new place. Her heart nearly stopped. She answered with a shaky voice. The manager told her she had been accepted as a server. She needed to start training the following week. For a moment she was speechless. Then she thanked him again and again until he laughed and told her to rest and be ready. When she hung up the phone, she stood still in the middle of the sidewalk. Her eyes filled with tears. She wanted to scream with joy, but instead she smiled so big her cheeks hurt. She had done it. She had earned something by pure courage and effort. She ran to her apartment and told her roommates. They hugged her and clapped, and one of them said that small wins add up to big wins if you keep going. That night, she slept peacefully, dreaming of a brighter version of herself. Her first day at the new job was intense. The restaurant was louder, busier, and more organized than her old workplace. She had to remember table numbers, menu items, customer requests, and the flow of service. Her trainer spoke quickly, and she tried her best to follow. Sometimes she misunderstood and had to ask again. Sometimes she made small mistakes, like bringing the wrong drink or forgetting to refill water. But nobody yelled, and nobody belittled her. The staff corrected her gently and encouraged her to keep trying. After a few weeks, she became more confident. She could greet customers, take orders, and carry trays without shaking. Her English improved through constant interaction. She learned words related to food ingredients, allergies, requests, and preferences. Customers noticed her effort. Some praised her kindness and patience. Others asked where she was from and smiled warmly when she answered. She felt seen in a world that had once treated her like a shadow. Money also improved. She was earning tips, which helped her save faster. She started sending a little money home to her parents for the first time. They cried over the phone, saying they were proud of her. She felt a deep warmth in her chest, knowing that her success was not just hers, but belonged to her family as well. Their sacrifices, their prayers, and their belief in her had brought her to this moment. With her new income, she reduced stress about rent and food. She still lived humbly, but now she could afford better groceries and sometimes even a small treat, like a cup of coffee on her day off. One afternoon, she walked through a bookstore and bought a used English novel. It was her first real purchase for pleasure in years. She spent evenings reading slowly, with a dictionary app by her side, and each chapter made her feel closer to the language and the culture she was trying to understand. But life was not without challenges. As her confidence grew, she faced new struggles. A few customers treated her rudely, complaining about service or making jokes about her accent. One night, a man spoke to her like she was stupid. She stood there, holding back tears until he left. Then she went to the restroom and looked at herself in the mirror. She wanted to quit. She wanted to go home where everything made sense. But then she remembered why she came and how far she had already climbed. Quitting was not her story. She wiped her face, took a deep breath, and returned to work stronger. Around this time, she reconnected with the idea of technology from the job fair. She searched online for beginner coding classes and found a workshop for web development at a community tech center. It was free for immigrants and low-income students. She signed up without hesitation. The class met twice a week at night after her restaurant shift. She often arrived tired with aching feet, but her mind sparked with excitement when she sat in front of the computer. The first weeks were overwhelming. JavaScript, HTML, CSS, these were words she had never seen before. The instructor explained concepts like variables, functions, and structure. She spent hours copying code, practicing exercises, and watching tutorials. Her brain hurt like it was lifting heavy weights, but that pain felt productive. Learning code was like learning a new language, a language not spoken with the mouth, but typed with the hands. It did not care about her accent or her origin. It cared only about logic and perseverance, and that made her fall in love with it. As months passed, she built small projects like simple websites and interactive buttons. She showed them to Elena, who proudly celebrated her progress. Elena said she was not only surviving the American dream, she was slowly shaping it with her own hands. That message stayed in her heart and kept her moving forward. Her schedule became intense. Work from morning to class at night, studying until late, sleeping for a few hours, then repeating the cycle. Friends invited her to social gatherings, but she declined, saying she had plans. She was not being antisocial. She was investing in her future. One night, after finishing a coding assignment, she lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. She thought about her old life, about how limited her options once were. In her home country, people often told her that women should not dream too big, that success was reserved for others, not for girls like her. But here, in this foreign land, far from comfort, she was proving them wrong. Even though her journey was exhausting, and even though she still had a long way to go, she felt free in a way she had never felt before. Freedom to learn, freedom to choose, freedom to try. That freedom was the real heart of the American dream. Toward the end of the year, she received an email from the Tech Center. They were offering advanced scholarships for students who showed strong dedication and potential. The scholarship included a certificate program with mentorship and career guidance. She read the message 3 times in disbelief, then printed the application. She filled it out carefully, attaching her projects, her teacher's recommendation, and a short essay about her goals. She submitted it and waited, once again caught in that space between fear and hope. She continued working, studying, and improving, while silently praying that her effort would be recognized. She knew that life rarely rewarded those who waited. It rewarded those who worked while waiting, and she was working harder than ever. One chilly morning, while walking to work, her phone buzzed. She opened the email and froze. She had been selected for the scholarship. Her breath caught in her throat. She read it again to be sure. Her hands trembled. She leaned against a wall, trying to steady herself. The city noise around her faded, because in that moment, she felt the world shift again. She was being pulled into a new direction, toward an opportunity that could change her entire future. The scholarship marked a turning point in Amina's life. She could hardly believe that months of struggle, late nights at work, and endless study had led to this moment. She enrolled in the advanced coding program and walked into the classroom with both excitement and anxiety. The room was filled with students from different backgrounds, some younger, some older, but all eager to learn. They greeted her warmly, and she realized she was no longer alone in her ambition. The instructors were professional and demanding. They expected dedication and precision. Every assignment was challenging and pushed her limits. She spent long nights debugging code, reading tutorials, and writing scripts. Her fingers ached from typing, but each solved problem felt like climbing another rung on a ladder she had dreamed of for years. Slowly, she began creating functional websites, interactive applications, and learning concepts that had once seemed impossible. Balancing the restaurant job and the scholarship program was difficult. Her schedule was exhausting, and sometimes she cried silently in the quiet moments between work and study. She missed sleep and social life, but she reminded herself that these sacrifices were temporary and her future depended on them. She started to organize her days meticulously, allocating hours for work, learning, and rest. She realized that discipline was a skill as important as coding itself. Her confidence grew as she completed projects and received positive feedback from instructors. The first time she saw her work live online, she felt a rush of pride. It was proof that she could create something tangible with her own hands. proof that she was capable of learning new skills even in a foreign country without privilege or prior experience. She shared screenshots with Elena, who cheered for her as if she were a family. At work, she began noticing changes too. Customers recognized her more, and some complimented her on her professionalism and friendly attitude. Coworkers admired her determination and occasionally asked her questions about how she managed to balance both jobs. She smiled politely but felt proud inside. She was slowly transforming herself from a worker surviving paycheck to paycheck to a student building a professional identity. One evening, she received a call from her family back home. Her mother's voice trembled with pride, and her father encouraged her to continue studying and saving. He said that they had always believed in her strength, and now she was proving them right. Amina felt a warmth in her chest that made the distance between them feel smaller. Her sacrifices were connecting her family to new opportunities and giving them hope as well. Despite progress, she faced new obstacles. Sometimes assignments were too complex and she spent hours trying to debug code, only to find that a single missing character had caused hours of frustration. Late nights led to fatigue, and at times she questioned her choices. Would it have been easier to just stay in a simple job back home without this pressure, without the loneliness, without the fear of failing? But every time doubt arose, she remembered how far she had come, how much she had learned, and how she had survived tougher challenges before. Around this time, she joined a study group with other scholarship recipients. They met weekly in the library, sharing knowledge, solving problems, and encouraging each other. The group became a support network, helping her understand complicated topics faster and giving her confidence to ask questions without shame. She realized that success was not a solitary achievement, but something built with community, collaboration, and mentorship. Her English continued improving. She started writing professional emails, submitting assignments confidently, and even giving short presentations in class. The language that had once seemed insurmountable now became a tool for expression and communication. She found joy in articulating ideas and explaining concepts to her peers. When she solved a complex coding problem and shared it with the group, she saw admiration in their eyes and felt a sense of belonging that she had never known. As months turned into a year, she began to envision a future beyond the scholarship. She dreamed of working in a tech company, leading projects and creating solutions that could impact others. She started networking, attending meetups, and contacting professionals for advice. Every conversation taught her something new and expanded her understanding of what was possible. She realized that the American dream was not a fixed destination, but a journey shaped by vision, effort, and courage. The restaurant job remained challenging, but she viewed it differently now. It was no longer just survival work, but a temporary stepping stone supporting her dreams. She greeted regular customers with a smile and often reflected on how each tray carried not just food, but progress. She had learned patience, humility, and empathy through interactions with people from all walks of life. One day, an instructor approached her after class and mentioned a potential internship with a local tech startup. They were looking for students who demonstrated skill, dedication, and problem-solving ability. The opportunity felt surreal. She had never imagined that her coding skills would lead to such recognition. She applied immediately, submitting a portfolio of her work and a personal statement describing her journey and aspirations. The following week, she received an email confirming the interview. She was elated and nervous at the same time. Preparing for it meant reviewing projects, practicing explanations, and rehearsing answers to technical questions. She spent late nights imagining scenarios and anticipating challenges, but her determination was unshakable. She knew this was the next critical step on her path. On the day of the interview, she dressed neatly, tying her hair back and carrying a notebook with notes. She entered the office filled with young professionals and experienced engineers who welcomed her politely. She answered questions honestly, explained her coding projects, and demonstrated her ability to learn quickly. The interview lasted longer than expected, but she felt confident that she had conveyed her passion and dedication. After returning home, she waited anxiously for the decision. Her mind replayed the interview over and over. She thought about what she could have done differently, but also reminded herself of how much she had achieved already. Days later, an email arrived confirming that she had been selected for the internship. She felt a wave of relief, joy, and pride wash over her. She had earned it. Her hard work, persistence, and courage had created an opportunity to move even closer to the dream she had carried for years. That evening, she called Elena to share the news. They laughed, cried, and celebrated silently in their small apartment. Amina realized that this internship was more than just a job. It was validation of every struggle, every sacrifice, every late night, and every moment she refused to give up. She was no longer simply surviving. She was stepping into a life she had envisioned herself building when she first arrived in a foreign country with nothing but hope. The internship began on a bright Monday morning. Amina walked into the office building with a mix of excitement and nerves. She was assigned to a team working on web development projects with real clients and tight deadlines. The pace was fast and the expectations were high. She often stayed late, asking questions, learning from mentors, and reviewing code. Her days were long, but every challenge made her skills sharper and her confidence stronger. Her colleagues were supportive. Some were experienced engineers and some were fellow interns. She asked for help when needed, listened attentively during meetings, and gradually started contributing ideas. Her mentors noticed her dedication and willingness to learn. They encouraged her to take on small projects independently and praised her progress. It was the first time in her life that someone recognized her potential beyond survival work. She continued working at the restaurant during evenings and weekends to maintain her income. The physical exhaustion was intense, but she reminded herself that every hour spent working supported her future. Her body often ached, and she went to bed late, but she felt proud of her discipline. She realized that she was capable of balancing multiple responsibilities and that this resilience was an essential part of building her dream. The internship also exposed her to new perspectives. She attended workshops about technology trends, business strategy, and client communication. She networked with professionals who shared their experiences and gave advice. She learned that success was not only about technical skill, but also about problem solving, persistence, and building relationships. She began thinking about long-term goals and envisioning a career path that included leadership and innovation. Her English improved even more through presentations, meetings, and casual conversations with colleagues. She could now explain complex ideas clearly and confidently. She practiced writing professional emails and proposals and received feedback that helped her improve. Her ability to communicate effectively became one of her strongest assets and opened doors to new opportunities. At home, she shared her experiences with Elena. They celebrated small victories together, discussed challenges, and encouraged each other to continue pushing forward. They became more than roommates. They became partners in ambition, supporting each other emotionally and practically. During weekends, they sometimes explored the city together, attending events, visiting libraries, and learning about American culture. They began to feel a sense of belonging in a city that had once seemed foreign and intimidating. As months passed, Amina completed several projects successfully. Her code was used in live websites and applications. She received recognition from clients and mentors and gradually earned the trust of her team. The confidence she gained made her more ambitious. She began thinking about creating her own software solutions and eventually starting a business that could help other immigrants or small businesses navigate technology. The internship also allowed her to save more money. She was able to send regular support to her family back home and also set aside funds for her future education and eventual independent living. She often reflected on the sacrifices she had made and the journey that had brought her here. She remembered the airport, the small apartment, the long nights of studying English and coding. The memories reminded her how far she had come and how strong she had become. During this time, she faced setbacks as well. A few projects did not go as planned. She struggled with complex coding challenges or misinterpreted client requirements. Sometimes she felt frustrated and overwhelmed. Yet, she learned to approach problems systematically, seeking guidance and breaking tasks into manageable steps. She realized that failure was part of learning and that persistence was more important than immediate perfection. She also became a mentor for new interns, sharing her knowledge about coding best practices, time management, and balancing work and study. Her journey inspired others who were also immigrants or students struggling to find their place. She discovered a sense of fulfillment in helping others navigate challenges that she had once faced herself, and realized that giving back was a form of success in itself. Outside of work, she continued her personal growth. She read books about technology, entrepreneurship, personal development, and leadership. She attended online seminars and watched tutorials that expanded her knowledge. She realized that learning was a lifelong process and that every new skill acquired increased her ability to shape her own future. One evening, she received an unexpected email from a local tech competition announcing a call for proposals. She had an idea for a small application that could help immigrants access services more easily. She hesitated at first, doubting whether she was ready, but then remembered everything she had overcome. The lessons learned at the restaurant, the coding classes, the internship, and the scholarship all prepared her for this opportunity. She decided to apply and spent the next few weeks refining her proposal. With careful planning, she submitted the application and awaited the results. While waiting, she continued her internship and restaurant work, keeping herself productive. She did not allow fear or impatience to distract her. She understood that opportunity was created through preparation and perseverance, and that luck favored those who worked while waiting. A few weeks later, she received news that her project had been selected for presentation. She was invited to pitch it to a panel of judges composed of industry professionals and investors. The invitation filled her with pride, but also nervousness. She spent days preparing her presentation, practicing her speech, and refining the prototype. She rehearsed answering potential questions until she felt ready to face the panel with confidence. On the day of the presentation, she arrived early in the conference hall. Dressed professionally, she carried her laptop with her prototype loaded and notes carefully organized. She took deep breaths before stepping on stage and began her pitch, explaining the problem, her solution, and the impact it could have on the immigrant community. Her voice was steady and clear, her passion evident. The judges listened attentively, asked questions, and provided feedback. She responded thoughtfully, demonstrating both technical knowledge and personal insight. By the end of the session, she felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. Regardless of the outcome, she knew that she had presented herself and her idea professionally and authentically. She had taken another step towards her dream, proving to herself and others that her efforts and resilience could transform an idea into action. Later that evening, she walked home reflecting on her journey. From the airport arrival to the small apartment, the restaurant shifts, the English classes, the scholarship and internship, every moment had built towards this day. She realized that the American dream was not just about success, but about growth, courage, perseverance, and the ability to keep moving forward despite uncertainty. Her heart was full of hope. She knew the road ahead was still long and full of challenges, but she also knew that she had the tools, determination, and spirit to navigate it. The dream she had carried for years was no longer just a vision. It was unfolding with each step she took, with each project completed, and with each opportunity embraced. The weeks after the presentation were filled with anticipation and preparation. Amina continued her internship at the tech startup, balancing her restaurant shifts and personal study. She refined her project, incorporated feedback from the judges, and explored ways to make it more user-friendly. Her evenings were spent testing the application, researching immigrant services, and brainstorming additional features that could make a real difference. Her dedication did not go unnoticed. The tech mentors at the startup praised her creativity and initiative. They encouraged her to consider turning her project into a full-fledged startup. They explained the steps required, from business registration to marketing and client acquisition. Amina listened carefully, absorbing every detail. She realized that her dream was expanding beyond employment into entrepreneurship. The idea of launching a company both excited and intimidated her. She had never imagined running a business or managing a team, yet she felt ready. She had learned discipline, resilience, problem-solving, and communication through years of struggle, work, and study. She knew she could apply these skills to create something meaningful and sustainable. At home, she discussed her plans with Elena. They stayed up late, planning a timeline for her startup, estimating costs, identifying potential users, and outlining features. Elena offered to support her with administrative tasks and moral support. She realized that success was not achieved alone, and that having trusted partners made challenges less daunting. Meanwhile, she continued working at the restaurant, where she noticed her coworkers began to look up to her. She helped train new staff, guided them patiently, and shared advice about balancing work and education. She became a role model not because she was perfect, but because she persevered. She often reflected on how her journey had transformed her, from a timid young woman unsure of her English to someone capable of leading and inspiring others. Her family back home continued to be a source of motivation. She sent regular updates about her progress and shared her excitement about the potential startup. They encouraged her to pursue her vision and reminded her that her determination had already made them proud. Every call with them filled her with renewed energy and purpose, reinforcing the sacrifices she had made were worth it. In the tech community, she began networking more aggressively. She attended workshops, conferences, and meetups, presenting her ideas and learning from experienced entrepreneurs. She discovered the importance of mentorship, connections, and visibility. She reached out to mentors who could guide her in business strategy and technical execution. They provided insight into fundraising, pitching, and scaling a small project into a marketable solution. Late nights at the apartment became a routine. She worked on coding additional features, testing interfaces, refining the design, and preparing pitch materials. The effort was exhausting, but each small improvement brought her closer to turning her dream into reality. She often reflected on her arrival months ago and marveled at how far she had come, from struggling with basic English and survival jobs to creating a tangible solution with the potential to impact lives. One morning, she received an email from an incubator program offering support for early-stage startups run by women and immigrants. The program included mentorship, funding guidance, and networking opportunities. She read the email several times, her heart racing. She realized that this was exactly the opportunity she had been working toward. She carefully prepared her application, submitting her project description, goals, and personal story. Days later, she was invited for an interview. The preparation involved rehearsing her pitch, answering technical and business questions, and anticipating challenges. She spent hours reviewing her code and presentation materials. Late into the night, she practiced speaking clearly and confidently, imagining herself on stage addressing judges, investors, and potential partners. The day of the interview arrived. She walked into the incubator office carrying her laptop, notes, and prototype. Her presentation was professional, passionate, and precise. She spoke about the challenges immigrants face accessing services, the solution her application offered, and the impact it could create. She answered questions thoughtfully, demonstrating technical skill, business acumen, and personal insight. By the end of the interview, the panel was impressed. They praised her initiative, determination, and ability to turn struggle into innovation. She left the office feeling exhilarated, yet grounded. She had done everything she could, and now the result would reflect her perseverance. 2 weeks later, she received confirmation that her project had been accepted into the incubator program. The excitement was overwhelming. She now had access to resources, mentorship, and funding that could transform her idea into a functioning business. Her heart swelled with pride. She had taken the struggles, the sacrifices, the long nights, and turned them into an opportunity to create change, not just for herself, but for others. With the incubator support, she began building a small team, hiring interns and collaborating with designers and developers. She applied the lessons learned from years of juggling work, study, and life. She created schedules, delegated tasks, communicated clearly, and inspired her team to share the same vision. Her leadership grew naturally because it was rooted in empathy, experience, and perseverance. Meanwhile, she maintained her restaurant work for stability. She became more efficient, balancing her responsibilities, and found satisfaction in seeing her progress manifest in multiple areas of her life. Her nights were filled with coding, team meetings, and preparation for investor pitches, and her days with customer service and networking. Every moment was purposeful, and every challenge a chance to strengthen her resolve. Her personal growth was equally significant. She became more confident in her identity as an immigrant woman. She embraced her heritage while navigating a new culture. She spoke at community events, shared her journey, and inspired others to pursue their dreams despite obstacles. She understood that her story had power and that it could uplift others facing similar struggles. Months passed, and the startup began to take shape. The application was functional, tested, and ready for early users. She launched a pilot program, reaching a small group of immigrants who provided feedback. She iterated improvements based on user experience and started gaining recognition for solving a real problem in the community. She realized that the American dream she had chased for so long was no longer a distant vision, but a reality she was actively shaping. The startup gained momentum. Slowly but surely, Amina's vision was coming to life. She continued refining the application, adding features based on user feedback, making it more intuitive and accessible. She worked closely with her team, fostering creativity, collaboration, and accountability. Every success, small or large, reinforced her belief that persistence and courage could create real change. Investors began noticing the potential of her project. They invited her to pitch meetings, conferences, and networking events. She prepared meticulously, practicing her presentations, answering questions confidently, and demonstrating both technical expertise and personal commitment. Her story as an immigrant woman overcoming hardship resonated deeply, inspiring not just financial support, but mentorship and guidance from experienced entrepreneurs. Her life had transformed completely. Gone were the days of struggling to pay rent or working endless hours just to survive. She had built stability with her restaurant job, scholarship, and internship. But now she was creating something bigger, a platform that could impact hundreds, if not thousands, of lives. She felt a profound sense of purpose, knowing that her journey could help others navigate challenges she herself had faced. With funding secured, she expanded her team, hiring developers, designers, and community outreach specialists. She established a small office where the energy was focused, creative, and hopeful. Every team member understood the mission and shared Amina's dedication to improving access and opportunity for immigrant communities. She led by example, working long hours alongside them and encouraging collaboration, problem-solving, and innovation. Her confidence grew as she navigated challenges that once would have seemed impossible. She negotiated contracts, presented at conferences, managed budgets and deadlines, and led her team through setbacks and successes. Her English was fluent, her technical skill advanced, and her leadership natural. She had become a professional, an entrepreneur, and a role model all in one. Despite the demanding schedule, she stayed connected to her roots. She continued sending support to her family, visiting them when possible, and maintaining strong ties to her community. She never forgot the sacrifices that had brought her here and felt a deep responsibility to give back to those still struggling. She organized mentorship programs, workshops, and speaking events to inspire other immigrant women to pursue their own dream. The city that had once seemed intimidating now felt like home. She knew how to navigate its streets, communicate effectively, and thrive in its environment. She walked with confidence in neighborhoods that had once made her anxious and engaged with people who respected her for her knowledge, dedication, and compassion. Her identity as an immigrant woman was now intertwined with her identity as a successful professional and leader. Months turned into years, and her startup grew steadily. She added new features and services, expanding her reach and impact. She celebrated milestones with her team, recognizing each achievement while maintaining focus on long-term goals. She learned to balance ambition with gratitude, taking time to reflect on how far she had come and how her perseverance had transformed her life. One evening, after a long day of meetings and project launches, she sat at her office window looking at the city skyline. The lights reflected off glass towers, reminding her of the pictures she had once pinned on her childhood wall. Dreams that had once felt distant and unreachable were now tangible accomplishments. Her journey from a small apartment in a foreign city to leading a successful startup was proof that determination, resilience, and courage could indeed shape a new life. Her story became known in the local community and beyond. She was invited to speak at conferences, mentor young women, and contribute to programs supporting immigrants. She shared her message clearly. Success is built one step at a time through persistence, learning, and unwavering belief in oneself. Her experience inspired countless others to pursue their own American dream despite obstacles. Through it all, Amina never forgot the early days of struggle, the nights of studying English and coding, the long restaurant shifts, and the uncertainty of a new life. She honored those moments as the foundation of her strength. Her triumph was not just measured in professional success, but in her resilience, growth, and ability to lift others along the way. Finally, she realized that the American dream she had pursued was no longer a distant vision, but a lived reality. She had achieved her goals, helped her family, inspired her community, and created a meaningful life on her own terms. She smiled, knowing that the journey had made her stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than she could have imagined. The dream was hers, earned through determination, courage, and unshakable hope.